The invitation and tension build up. I never expected the weekend invitation to change everything. When Daniel, my cousin, called, his tone was warm, almost insistent. "Come stay for a few days," he urged. "It's been too long." It had been long. Too long, in fact. Daniel and I had grown up close, but life had a way of stretching distances. He had moved into a world of success, a high-paying job, a sprawling house, a wife whose beauty turned heads. Meanwhile, I was still finding my footing, newly engaged to Samantha, trying to carve out a stable future. Maybe that's why I agreed so quickly. When I arrived, Daniel's home was just as I had imagined. Sleek, modern, and intimidatingly perfect. He greeted me at the door, his grin easy, his handshake firm. "It's good to have you here," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Lena's inside. She's been looking forward to meeting you." I had seen photos of her before, but they hadn't done her justice. Lena was effortlessly stunning. Long, dark hair that cascaded past her shoulders, sharp green eyes that lingered a second too long. She smiled, and something about it felt deliberate. "Nathan," she said, her voice smooth. "Finally, I get to put a face to the stories." There was something in the way she said it, in the way she held my gaze. I dismissed it, attributing my unease to exhaustion from the long drive. That night, over dinner, conversation flowed easily. Daniel was lively, recounting stories of our childhood, laughing between sips of wine. Lena listened intently, occasionally brushing her fingers against Daniel's arm in a way that seemed rehearsed. When she spoke, she directed her words toward me more than him. "You must have had a wild past, Nathan," she mused, tilting her head. "I imagine you were quite the heartbreaker." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Not exactly." Daniel smirked. "Don't let him fool you, Lena. Back in the day, Nathan had a way with words. Got himself out of plenty of trouble." Something flickered in Lena's expression. Interest, maybe amusement. "Is that so?" she murmured, twirling the stem of her glass between her fingers. Daniel excused himself for a phone call, leaving Lena and me alone at the table. The air shifted. The sounds of cutlery and quiet music felt heavier, more pronounced. "You seem different from how I pictured you," she said after a pause. I raised an eyebrow. "How so?" She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I don't know. Just different." Before I could respond, Daniel returned, his easygoing nature melting the strange tension that had settled between us. Later that night, after Daniel had gone to bed, I stepped onto the patio for air. The night was cool, the sky clear. I was still processing the evening when I heard the soft click of the sliding door behind me. Lena. She stepped outside, a glass of wine in hand, her silk robe loosely tied. "Couldn't sleep." I shook my head. "Just needed some air." She leaned against the railing beside me. "I get that. Some nights, I feel like I could stay out here forever." I said nothing, but I could feel her eyes on me. "You and Daniel," she mused. "You're so different. He's always in control, always so sure of himself." She turned to face me. "You seem more unpredictable." I forced a chuckle, trying to downplay whatever this was. "I wouldn't say that." She tilted her head. "No." The air between us grew thick, charged. I could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing against my chest. Then, just as suddenly as she had joined me, she sighed, turning away. "Good night, Nathan." She disappeared into the house, leaving me alone with a knot of confusion tightening in my stomach. I should have left then. I should have known better. But hindsight is a cruel thing. And by the time the weekend ended, there would be no turning back. The betrayal unfolds. The next morning, Daniel suggested we go golfing, but I declined. "Didn't sleep much," I said, rubbing my temples. He laughed, clapping my shoulder. "Stay back then. Get some rest." He didn't press the issue. By the time he left, the house was unsettlingly quiet. I tried to distract myself, checked my phone, scrolled mindlessly, thought of Samantha. But my mind kept circling back to the night before. The way Lena had looked at me. The way she had walked away, as if she knew something I didn't. I poured myself a coffee, determined to shake it off. But then Lena appeared. She was wearing a loose knit sweater that slipped off one shoulder, revealing bare skin. Her legs were bare beneath it. She walked toward me slowly, as if testing the weight of each step. "You didn't go with Daniel," she noted, her voice softer than usual. "Didn't feel like it." I kept my tone neutral, but I didn't meet her eyes. She hummed as she moved past me, reaching for a glass. "That's a shame. He wanted to spend time with you." She filled it with water, took a slow sip. "But I don't mind having you here. I should have left right then. But I didn't." Lena set her glass down and turned, leaning against the counter. "You seem tense." I forced a dry chuckle. "I'm fine." She tilted her head, studying me. "Are you?" Something in her voice, light, teasing, but deliberate, stirred something dangerous inside me. A warning bell rang in my head, but it was distant, muffled. She moved closer. Close enough that I could catch the scent of her perfume, something rich and intoxicating. Close enough that I could see the way her lips parted slightly, the way her breath slowed. "This is a bad idea," I murmured, more to myself than to her. She smiled, a slow, knowing thing. "Then why aren't you stopping me?" I had no answer. When she touched me, my resolve shattered. It was quick, reckless, inevitable. Her hands on my skin, my fingers gripping the back of her neck, our mouths colliding like we had been waiting for this moment all along. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. Only heat. Only need. We barely made it to the couch. I don't know how long it lasted, but when it was over, reality came crashing down. Lena stretched languidly, unfazed. I sat at the edge of the couch, head in my hands, nausea creeping in. "What have I done?" I muttered. Lena only smiled. "Relax." I turned to look at her, disbelieving. "Relax." She sighed, standing up, wrapping herself in a silk robe. "You think too much, Nathan." She bent down, pressing a finger against my lips. "Just enjoy the moment." Before I could respond, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent ice through my veins. "Daniel." I shot up from the couch, panic setting in. "He's back." Lena didn't flinch. Instead, she glanced at the door, then back at me, calm as ever. "You should probably go upstairs," she said casually. I stared at her. "You're not worried?" She smiled, adjusting the tie of her robe. "Why would I be?" A knock echoed through the house. I didn't think. I ran. Up the stairs, into the guest room, shutting the door just as I heard Daniel's voice. "Lena." "Hey, baby," she greeted, her tone light, affectionate. "You're back early." I held my breath, listening. "Yeah, didn't feel like playing anymore." A pause. Footsteps. "What were you doing?" "Just lounging around," she said easily. "Nathan's upstairs." "He wasn't feeling great." Silence. My pulse pounded. "Ah," Daniel finally said. "Hope he's all right." The conversation drifted, but I couldn't focus on the words. My mind was a storm. Guilt, panic, fear. Then came the sound of footsteps moving toward the stairs. My stomach twisted. Was he coming up? I waited, each second stretching unbearably. But then, his voice from downstairs. "I'm going to shower." The bathroom door closed. Water started running. I exhaled shakily. I had escaped this time. But something told me this wasn't over. Not even close. The consequences and the twist. I barely slept that night. Every sound, every shift in the house made my pulse quicken. The weight of what I had done sat heavy on my chest. I had betrayed Daniel. Worse, I had done it with his wife, in his home, under his roof. Morning came sluggishly. I forced myself out of bed, dreading the day ahead. I expected guilt to be painted across Lena's face, some sign that she regretted it as much as I did. But when I saw her at the breakfast table, she was unbothered. "Morning," she said, sipping her coffee, her lips curling ever so slightly. Daniel sat beside her, flipping through his phone, oblivious. He barely looked up as he muttered, "Sleep better." I cleared my throat, my voice thick. "Yeah, a little." Lena glanced at me, something teasing behind her eyes. I forced myself to look away. The next few hours were torture. I was certain Daniel would notice something. The tension, the stolen glances, my inability to meet his gaze. But if he did, he didn't show it. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. "I should probably head out soon," I said, forcing a casual tone. Daniel frowned. "Already?" "Yeah. Samantha's expecting me back." Her name felt foreign on my tongue. Saying it made my stomach twist. Daniel nodded, standing up. "I'll walk you out." Lena didn't move. She only watched, her expression unreadable. Outside, the sun was blinding. My hands were clammy as I reached for my bag. "You sure you're good?" Daniel asked, his voice light, but with an edge I couldn't quite place. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." He studied me for a moment, then grinned. "All right. Drive safe." Relief flooded me as I climbed into my car. But just as I started the engine, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Frowning, I opened the message. "I know." My stomach dropped. Attached was a photo, grainy, but clear enough. Lena. Me. Together. Blood pounded in my ears. My fingers shook as I scrolled down. Another message. "Don't worry. We have an understanding. I hope you enjoyed your stay." I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Daniel. I looked up, back at the house. The front door was still open. He was standing there, watching me. And he was smiling. A slow, knowing smile. Cold dread settled in my bones. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was a trap. And I had walked right into it.